Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. So we have a very special guest today, but before we get into that, everybody always asks, what is the Ask Brien show? Why is it on the air? What are you doing? And why do you spell it with an E? I mean, most people tell me when they were growing up, they spelled it with an Brian or Bryan, and they have no clue why I would spell it with an E. They say, are you Irish? Are you Mr. O'Brien? Did you go to the O'Brien pub? And that's not exactly correct, but people always want to know, why would you spell Brien with an E? Now, the Ask Brien Show is a business show, but I wanted to ask our very, very special engineer that begins with an E, so we're taking that E away. Why do we use an E for Ask Brien? Patrick, you're on.
I'm on. How's it going today?
Do you have a little big drum roll? Dun, 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 dun.
We could just make our own. Anyways, there's a number of
Okay.
E's that have to do with the Ask Brien radio show. You took away the engineer part, which was always my favorite. Still always is my favorite.
But are you the engineer?
For right now, currently not, but I am still an engineer. That
Well.
would be our engineer, Emily.
And Emily's with an E?
Emily does start with an E.
It was a requirement to be on the show.
This is true.
We're only looking for people with E's.
True. Outside of that, we have excellence, because the Ask Brien show has nothing but excellence in it.
And also, the Bill and Ted Excellent Adventures. dude.
Excellent, dude.
Yes.
Outside of that, there was empathy.
What's that?
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes, not literally but figuratively.
Well, I wear a size 9. Your shoe is much bigger. So
I am a size 13.
No, that's the problem. You could never fit in my shoes.
Oh my God, he said not literally, but figuratively. What
Thank
about
you,
that?
Tracy.
I am a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. Everything is very literal.
Outside of that, we have, let's see, empathy. Experts, because everybody that appears on the Ask Brien show happens to be an expert in their field.
What are you an expert in?
Engineering. I mean, it works, doesn't it?
I'm so sorry. I'm just sorry. Like, I don't even know what to say. I don't even feel like I need to accept responsibility for this, but it's just, I'm sorry.
I'm an expert in laughing,
Apparently.
making others laugh.
You're an expert at something.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Remember, we're live on the radio. We do have FCC requirements. Go ahead.
Other ones we have are experience, because everyone has a lot of experience in their field, especially our guests.
What's your experience?
Engineering and communicating.
Yeah. Okay.
Got a degree.
Yeah. I got you. In case anyone doesn't see, I'm giving the little okay.
They can definitely see.
Well,
We
only
are
on Facebook.
On camera.
Yeah.
Only
That's
on
true.
Facebook.
That's true.
What you can't see is someone else giving you a different finger.
Well, that's because he's number 1. It just happens to be a different finger.
Oh, come on. Outside of that, there happens to be, before I get to the 2, the new one actually is education, is Ian. That's our newest one.
And why do we do that?
Because everyone, should be educated. I don't know.
It's because each week we try to educate
That.
our
Yes.
audience in
Indeed.
something about business to teach them.
And you know what? There's something about education that leads me to the next 2 is it leads everybody with some enthusiasm and
Excitement! Woo, woo, woo!
heyo. I think that covers it. Am I missing any, Tracy? I think I got everything.
Well, right now I feel like you're
Well,
making
actually-
earlobe busting.
Well, the big one is we have another E today, and that is our special guest. Her name is Jane Hansen, and she has a very, very big E because she won an Emmy.
Heyo, we got a new one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep, that trumps every E we just said.
True, it does.
We're not playing bridge, so there is no trump cards. Anyway, without any further ado,
ADIEU.
and why do I like that word?
Because every single letter minus the D is a vowel.
And isn't that cool?
Oh, very cool.
And
Okay, Jane, I'm really sorry.
we're gonna have to say a special.
Everything.
We're gonna have to say a special goodbye to Patrick because he's got a little other functioning that he's got to work on right now. But we do have Emily, and we certainly will
I'll be listening,
be
don't
asking
worry.
her questions and getting her more in the loop. But without any further ado, we do have our co-host Tracy, and we have a very special guest, Jane Hansen. Hanson. Okay. And
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I tried to do it like Sam Kinnian from the Screamer, but he's not like here right now. So, couple questions, Jane. Now that you
Yes.
now are you going to be calling your publicist and saying what did I get myself into, or I don't know. But here
Already
we are.
did.
It's a good thing you got the redial button to flash right away. You have a very interesting background, Jane. Now, this is a business show, and for the viewers who don't know you, let's get a little background. And we don't need to go back to high school days, but in your business career, how did you begin your career, and what industry are you in?
Did you don't want me to start with the day I was born?
Anyway.
Well, first of all, it's a 1 hour show, and second of all, let's not get into the age issue here.
Oh, thank the Lord. I like that. Appreciate that.
And I am a New Yorker, so I can tuss with you as well. Go ahead.
Of course you can, because I spent most of my career in New York working for the NBC networks.
NBC.
You did it much better than me.
Howard Stern taught me
and
that. Go ahead.
He did, and Howard is quite the person to have in a radio show. Trust me, because if you don't listen to his shows, you should. You should. You can't believe the things he says. He's and actually, the funny thing about Howard is he's so different than his show. I mean, he's such a nice guy. And on his show, you think, ooh, I'd be afraid to have dinner with him. But the truth is, he's a really nice guy. Anyway,
Tracy says the same thing about me. Go ahead.
No, I don't. Oh, my God.
You guys, you have too much fun.
Yeah, we do.
So this isn't like after 5 o'clock.
It's Thursday afternoon live.
5
Go
o'clock
ahead.
somewhere.
5 o'clock somewhere, baby. So I really became an adult at NBC in New York, and I was hired because I have a degree in broadcast journalism. I grew up in the Midwest, and back then, believe it or not, they didn't really want people with New York accents very much. They wanted people with those very flat kind of accents where you can't tell where they're from. So I'm from Minnesota, and so they hired me and brought me to New York, which was quite the experience because I grew up in a town that had no stoplights. So it was just slightly different. Anyway, I became a reporter and an anchor and had my own show and did all of this for NBC in New York for 27 years. And it was honestly one of the best jobs, probably the best job I've ever had in my entire life. You watch history being made before your eyes. As you know, Brien, growing up in New York, there's a lot that happens in that town. They call it the city that never sleeps for a reason. We were told there's a news story on every corner, and I'll tell you, there was. You take a camera outside, and you never knew what was going to happen. So it was truly, truly amazing, and I learned so much from being in the broadcast business, interviewing hundreds of thousands of people, spending every day was like it was a brand new job because you never knew what was going to happen in the news that day. And I anchored the show called Today in New York, which preceded the Today Show for 18 years, which meant I got up, wait for it, at 3:20 a.m. every day.
So late?
3:20 a.m.
I heard
not
you.
3:19 and not 3:21. And the worst part were big holiday nights, like New Year's Eve. Sometimes, of course, because news never takes a holiday, I'd work on New Year's Day, and I'd be riding into the office at Rockefeller Center when I would see people that were not even ready to go home yet on the streets. That's where you kind of wondered, what am I doing? And Rock Center was a great place to work. What an amazing, iconic, wonderful building, and it's everything that everybody ever says it was, until the tree shows up, and then you feel like Grinch because of all the tourists and that sort of thing. But at any rate, so that's where I got really my business acumen, because when you're in the broadcast business, you meet a lot of different people. You have a lot of deadlines. You have to learn how to talk to the entire world. You're constantly judged every single day based upon the ratings. Sometimes we'd laugh and say we're only as good as our last rating book or our last. And we got the daily ratings. We got off the air at 6:58, and at 6:59, somebody walked in the door with the ratings, and you'd go, "How'd we do? How'd we do? How'd we do?" So it was the kind of business where you knew you had to be likable. People had they turned you on or off. It was as simple as that. If they didn't like what you said, you were gone. So I think it taught you a lot about how to be appealing, about how to be authentic, how to be genuine, which is more important than ever in business these days. And it really it taught me so much about the way the world works and watching people in business, because I did a lot of work in the business area. Fast forward, to kind of the end of my reign there. And one other thing I want to say about business before I go into the next phase of my life is I had a show of my own that was called Jane's New York. And the premise of the show, and I really wanted to start it on the heels of 9/11 because I wanted to make New York become alive again because it was so devastated after that. And so we started to do the show to celebrate all things New York. And the theme of the show was one subject. So we went underground New York and above New York. And we did a story about dogs of New York and restaurants. And do you know that wonderful park that's called the High Line? Which is, you know what I mean?
Yep. And I also know Bryant Park and a couple other parks.
Right. So, but the High Line was actually it was an elevated railroad track, and they were going to rip it down. And there were a couple of guys that got this great inspiration. Why not turn it into a park? Because there were no parks in that area way on the west side of Manhattan. And so we did a show on it before it actually was ever created. And we won it. One of the Emmys was because of that show, because we actually helped, in a certain sense, bring it to fruition because we brought a lot of public attention to it. So that was really pretty cool. So you watch, that got you to show how government and civic duty and pride and aspiration and dreams and all of that could come true. But at any rate, when, and the other thing I was going to say is I also created a lot of partnerships, like with the American Museum of Natural History, and I went on a dinosaur dig with them to the Gobi Desert of Mongolia because, we found a way to develop a partnership where we had, a production team together and, everything that went along with it. So I think creating partnerships can be a really important part of being a successful business person. I think that's a really excellent way of thinking about how can I do what I want to do when I might not be able to do it on my own. So I like that part of it. But then I created this business that I do now, which is all about teaching people how to communicate. And my aha moment came when people would come off the set in the last program I did, and they'd say, I didn't get to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And I'd think, gosh, I led them down this merry little garden path about talking about what I thought the audience was interested in, but they never brought it back to what they were there for. Maybe it was to sell a book or to talk about a project or to talk about some, whatever it was. And I thought, wow, I know how to do this. I can teach them how to tell their story in an effective way where people listen. And that's what I do now.
Well, how does that work when you don't have control of the interview?
Well, you can certainly choreograph it. A little example. So let's say I've come in this show to talk about, and I really want to talk about a book I've written, and you start to talk about a whole bunch of other things. What I can say is, Brien, that's such a great question, and I love talking about how important, television was. But what I really think we should talk about today is this book that I've written that really will relate all of that to you in an understandable way. Let me tell you about chapter 1. But it's all about pivoting and making sure that you can control the interview. And as long as you're interesting and can tell great stories, the audience is interested, and the interviewer is interested, and the host is interested. And the same holds for an audience of any kind. If you're giving a speech or you're making a presentation or you're emceeing something or whatever it is you're doing, you have to learn how to get it back on track so you're telling your message, but your message has to be really interesting.
So, do you coordinate that ahead of time typically, or is that, or it just depends on the interview?
Well, when I'm working with people, I spend a lot of time working with them to get their message right. And most people don't even know what their message is. They'll have like 9 or 10 of them. But the reality is, if you're giving a speech or you're doing an interview or you're doing whatever it is, you only have time usually for 1 or 2 messages. So you got to make sure you give them and you kind of repeat it and you make it really palatable and you make it fun and you make it interesting.
Well, definitely interesting. I think that's the biggest key, right? If you're interesting,
Yeah.
that takes away everything. It doesn't matter. Somebody may have tuned in today to learn something about X, but if they're interested in what's going on, they're going to continue to listen. And if they're not, they're not. Let me ask you a question. It's kind of you started out in a career that was dominated by male anchors, I believe. All right, and
Oh, yeah.
and you had to talk about not even a pivot. I mean, to be able to make it in the world back then, at that time, I don't know. I mean, maybe you had Barbara Walters and people like that, but there weren't too many out there. So how were you able to navigate that?
Well, so the very first job I ever had was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, on television. I didn't stay there very long, but I was hired, and I was the only woman they had in their newsroom, which meant I did the news, I was a reporter, I was an anchor, I was a producer, I shot my own footage, and back then we would take, and cameras were really big then, and you'd take the camera and you'd put them up on top of a tripod, and I'd run around to the front of it and do, when you see reporters hold the mic and they do that little stand-up, right? And I'd run around to the front of the camera and hope I had the angle right so that you could see my head. And then I'd shoot that, and then we'd run back to the station and edit the film or edit the video. And so, I did everything. I think they thought one woman was enough. Now, I know we're multitaskers, right, Tracy? But,
oh, yeah.
but that's a lot of multitasking. And I remember thinking at the time, why aren't there any other women? And there was nobody to kind of commiserate with kind of women things. And I really had to be on my own with that. But at the same time, I learned a lot. And I mean, I was too young and dumb to know the difference, I think. But when I got to NBC, there were women that were there, but I never had a woman boss until, oh my God, so I'd been there for like 20 years. And then I had a news director, and I remember walking into the bathroom, and she's in there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what men have had their whole careers. They've been able to talk to their boss in the bathroom. And it was like, wow. So yes, I think it was different, but it was everywhere. It wasn't like every other place had lots of women in the broadcast business did. There weren't a lot of women anywhere. And so we had to find our own way. And I do think that we were much more competitive as women then because there were fewer spots for them than we are today. And it's a whole different ballgame. I work with a lot of women. I love working with women. I help empowering them. I help being a mentor. I've mentored a lot of females in my life. I love being in a place where I can truly help them get ahead. Not to the detriment of working with men or anything else. I just don't want them to have some of the same experiences I did. That's it.
Well, you are definitely you're definitely a true pioneer. We're going to be taking a break. When we come back, we're going to focus more on what you're doing now and how you can help people. We'll be right back. KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
Healthcare can be difficult if you're underinsured or have Medi-Cal. Samuel Dixon Family Health Center can help. Services are available on a sliding fee schedule. The mission of the Samuel Dixon Family Health Center is to give the Santa Clarita Valley access to affordable, quality primary care. There are 3 locations to serve you: Canyon Country, Newhall, and Valverde. Go to sdfhc.org for more information and to find the location most convenient for you.
Olive Terrace Bar and Grill is the hottest new Mediterranean fusion restaurant in Santa Clarita with unique delicacies like seafood right off the boat, mouth-watering prime steaks, artesian sandwiches, delicious pastas, and tasty kebabs. Unwind on their cozy outdoor patio at their weekend champagne brunch. Full menu and weekly specials at oliveterracebarandgrill.com. Check out their full bar and happy hour daily specials in Valencia on Copper Hill and Newhall Ranch Road by LA Fitness. Olive Terrace Bar and Grill, delicious food seasoned with love.
Get ready to discover a creative new way to have fun. Painting with a twist. We'll show you step by step how to make fun art, not fine art. It's painting, it's dancing, it's a party. Painting with a twist. It's a little bit of paint, a little bit of wine, and a whole lot of fun. Visit paintingwithatwist.com to find the studio nearest you.
Now located in the patios at Valencia Westfield Mall, Google Painting with a Twist Santa Clarita for a new kind of fun.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
Facey knows life gets busy. Let us go to work for you in the Santa Clarita Valley. We have 34 primary care physicians and 55 specialty doctors in 4 offices. And Facey has easy 24/7 online appointment scheduling for PCPs and PEDS with some extended hour appointments available. We are Facey Medical Group. Let us go to work for you today. For more information or to make an appointment, visit facey.com. That's FACEY.com.
Experience Frontier Toyota's all-new hot and exciting Toyota lineup. Serving the Santa Clarita Valley for over 30 years. Frontier Toyota, the Camry, Corolla, and Prius Kings. They're tops in Tacoma and Tundra trucks. Frontier Toyota, the new way of car buying. Shop from home at frontiertoyota.com or visit their showroom at Valencia and Creekside. Discover a whole new car buying experience with your friends at Frontier Toyota.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome back to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM with our very special guest, Jane Hanson, and our co-host, Traci. Traci, you're a really,
Thank you for that.
That's a really long introduction, by the way.
Yes, and unnecessary, but thank you.
But Sam Kinison would the screaming, would really appreciate that. So we're back live, and we were asking questions to Jane, and my question to you is, you talked a lot about the business side, but viewers don't really understand the business side. I mean, mostly when you think about a production, you're only looking at, okay, here's the show, here's the content of the show, but there's a business aspect to it. What are some of the business aspects that you learned as an anchor?
Well, first of all, unless a television show makes money, it ain't going to last. And so what became very important was to make sure that our ratings went up, because they charged for commercials based upon the ratings. And in today's world, there's also other things such as social media. There's the digital aspects of it. I mean, it's multi-platform now for the broadcast business. But back then, it was really what were the ratings and what did you get for a show and how much could you charge for the commercials. So we learned. I mean, there are so many tricks to it that people don't even realize. For example, the average half-an-hour newscast is really only 22 minutes long, because there's 8 minutes allowed for commercials and for promotion. And so we would have to accommodate that. And I remember I had one boss who was a ratings genius, and so he would say things like, you cannot take a commercial break until 7 minutes and 15 seconds into the half an hour or even the hour of a show, because if you do, then you get credited for the whole 15 minutes, each 15 minutes. So you had to be really careful about where you took your commercial breaks, and you didn't want to have an anchor talk too long and that sort of thing. You also, there were very fine lines when you were a reporter or an anchor between how you had to watch what you were, doing and saying, because you couldn't cross certain lines. So they tried to keep business and journalism very separate. I think those lines have become very blurred now, and I think that's something that's happened. And then we had a lot of community involvement. We'd go out into the communities a lot I did a ton of emceeing and hosting and that sort of thing, which was all very much about enticing people to watch the station. Obviously we felt a certain commitment to give back as well. But at the same time, the more that you were out in the community, the better that it became for people to like you and want to watch the station. But we all knew, at the end of the day, that our job was to make sure that people watched us. And that was the real business of broadcasting. You also have to represent the community, too, in terms of the number of people, the kinds of people you have on the air. And, old, young, whatever their ethnicity is. Maybe there's geography involved, et cetera. There's even a business to thinking about what you're wearing. The whole thing is, it's not that it's contrived, but there's a lot of things that are not. There's an illusion to it. There really is when you think about the business of broadcasting.
Well, so that's a very good question. Do people get paid to wear certain things on a show?
No. It's not that they get paid. Some places, some stations, some people have written into their contracts that their clothing will be paid for. Because I want you to think about this, and it's especially important for women. Getting back to that whole notion of women are treated differently. I had a guy that I worked with at WNBC TV in New York who he had a uniform. In the summer, he wore khaki pants, a linen or cotton blazer, a blue shirt, and then he'd change his tie. In the winter, he wore gray pants, a cashmere blue jacket, a blue shirt, and he changed the tie. He wore it every single day, and no one ever noticed. The guys could wear the same suit. All they had to do was change up the tie and the shirt. Women had to wear completely different outfits every day because we were looked at for it. And then there was one point in time, I can't remember who was the boss then, but there was a decision made that they didn't want us wearing short-sleeved or sleeveless dresses. So I want you to look at television shows today because everybody's wearing sleeveless dresses or short sleeves or whatever. Right?
Well, yes, I've noticed that myself.
Right. So they told us we couldn't wear them, and at that point we had no wardrobe budget. So one of the women who was a weathercaster basically said, "I'll wear whatever you want me to wear as long as you're paying for it. You're not paying for it. Don't tell me what to wear." And they weren't willing to pay for it, so we just went on and wear whatever we wanted. So
you started a revolution. Tracy has a whole bunch of questions. She says I'm hogging the time, so go ahead, Trace.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually. You're a mind reader.
I don't think so, but go ahead. Because you don't know what I'm saying right now. Go ahead.
No, and I probably don't want to. So, Jane, in talking about your specific business now, because I love hearing all of your stories about being on television in the broadcast industry. As we shared off the mic, I spent decades in the broadcast radio business, and we share so many of the similar stories, and it's fun to go down memory lane on those. But in the business that you have now, I'd love to hear, what was the turning point for you when you were like, I want to start this business, and this is what I want to do? What was your aha moment for that?
A couple of things. One, was I was tired of deadlines, because in the television, in any broadcast business, there are deadlines. You have to be there when the show's on the air. They're not waiting for you. The second thing is, big stories always happen on the Friday before you were taking a vacation. It was like, I don't know why, but it always was. News never took a holiday. I mean, it's just crazy, right? So I really wanted to have my life back. For a long time, when I did those early morning newscasts, when I got up at 3:20 a.m., I went to bed at 8 o'clock at night. On weekends, I'd try to stay up late, and literally I'd be out at dinner. My head would fall on the plate by about 9:30 at night, because you live a life completely opposite of other people. So, I mean, I didn't do that forever. I did it for 18 years. I had a show of my own, and then I did another celebrity-filled show. So it wasn't like I did that forever, but to this day I have sleeping issues. But I felt like my life wasn't my own, and I really, really wanted to take that back. And the reason I really wanted to stop doing the early morning news when I did was when my daughter got to be about, 12 or 13, and I realized she was staying up later than me. And in New York City, can you imagine what that kid could have done? I mean, seriously, I would never have known. So I just decided that for all those reasons, it was good for me to try something else. But I really believe that I could help people. I saw from all of the people that I interviewed, I saw from the people that I watched giving presentations, from this whole business world, I saw how desperately it was needed for people to be good communicators. And there are so many that aren't, and they don't take the time to fix it. And it's just like you do anything else. You want to play golf, you go take a lesson to figure out how to swing the club. You want to play piano, you do that. You want to become a great, really super good cook, you might go to a culinary school. I mean, you want to become a photographer, you might invest in some lessons somehow. In every other field, even, for work, people will say, I'm going to get a business degree, or I'm going to go back to school and take a course in, something that will enhance my resume. But very few people think about actually working on how they communicate. And yet, communication is the key part of almost anything we do any day, either be it in business, be it with our family, be it with our friends. We're always communicating. And if you could, with some really simple lessons, you can become so much better than you are. And when I realized that, and realized what was missing, and realized I had a gift for it, I wanted to go out there and spread the word. And nothing makes me happier than when somebody has an aha moment. I mean, everybody's got an expertise of some sort, and they should be out there sharing it. But many people are too afraid. And do you know something else? There are all these. It's called glossophobia. Glossophobia is fear of public speaking, and 78% of the people in this country have a very severe case of it at one time or another, where they've got to do something really important to their career, important to a promotion, important to, to selling what they're trying to sell, and they get brain fog and they completely screw it up. So it's a big deal. In fact, Jerry Seinfeld used to tell this joke that at a funeral, more people would rather be in the coffin than give the eulogy. So,
Right, exactly. But I'm curious, too, because video is such a big marketing tool right now. I mean, podcasting's really hot in the audio arena. People are also releasing audio and video podcasts. The pandemic pivoted a lot of people from in-person speaking events to video events. Did you pivot your business during the pandemic, and how has the pandemic affected your ability to run your business in terms of the training sessions?
Well, I went all virtual, of course, but then the whole world was virtual, and actually business obviously, like whatever the date was, March 13th, 2020. I mean, just like everybody else, all of a sudden I had no business. But what happened very quickly is people started to realize that they were going to have to conduct themselves over this thing called Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever they were using, and they weren't sure how to do it. And so at first, people were like, I'll just put my pajama bottoms on and some kind of a T-shirt and I'm good to go. But then we realized it was going to be a lot longer than we thought, and there had to become a professionalism to it. And that's where I really was able to contribute, because first of all, I could use all the things I learned in television. You can translate that to Zoom very easily. And secondly, all the same communication skills could be used. The only thing that wasn't quite as intense as from my regular, in-person training was full body language, because I do a lot about our body language. So we're only seeing our heads and very top part of our torso. But there's still a lot that shows about body language, and I could really teach people how to do that. Also, it became imperative that we learned how to connect. And at first that was difficult for people because they didn't know what to do. I'm not walking into somebody's office or meeting them for lunch or, at a conference room with all my peers. Now I've got to do it over this thing I'm uncomfortable with, where I got to look into this camera and I don't know how to connect. So I was able to use that too, because showing vulnerability and compassion and all those things have never been more important than when we went through that, especially the beginning stages of the horrible pandemic, where people didn't know how to talk to one another. Like, what do I say? What do I do? So the trainings became even more important than ever.
I can only imagine. And one thing I've noticed as a producer of podcasts is that people, the barrier to entry in creating your own content through audio and video, because of the technology and the things that are now, tools that are now accessible for us, is that there are a lot of people who are getting into these situations where they're hosting a certain show or they're doing Q&A interviews, and they've never had any formal media training. So
Correct.
They have all of the tools available to them to easily create and distribute the content, but the content that they're putting out there can be considered somewhat amateur if they don't have a professional like you who could help navigate that path.
That is so true. Oh, my God. I've listened to some of those podcasts. And so here's the trick, which any good interviewer, like you guys know, is to listen. It's all about listening, because if you don't listen, you may want to throw every question you have out the window because somebody's just said something so amazing. You've got to know more about that. And you don't care about your regular questions. Who cares? Because what you want to do in any podcast, in any interview, in anything, is to make it engaging, make it interesting, tell people something they never knew before, give them a great story, do it in a way, and here's where the body language stuff comes in, because body language is also about your voice and, your gestures, which really help us tell a story better because it brings emphasis, even when you can't see my face, you can't see my body, etc. I'm using my hands right now as I'm talking to you. I am, and so are you, I'll bet. But so
I bet,
so
yes.
It's really about listening. It's the key to everything. And the more we listen, the more that we can figure out how to take that story to the next step. And that's the key. So every podcaster out there has got to do that. They're so busy with their little list of questions. I mean, sometimes somebody will say something, and then I'm astonished the podcaster doesn't follow up on it. Like they'll say, well, I really didn't mean to kill my mother. And the next question on the podcaster's list is, so tell me about that.
Oh my God, you're so right. And
we got to take a break, guys. Sorry about that, Traci.
It's so true. That's all we're going to say. So
we got to take a break. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to ask Ms. Hansen, give us 3 body language cues that are very important and what they mean.
Life's real tests are never standardized. The curriculum at iLead Agua Dulce places self-discovery at the core of every experience, so your learner will be ready to lead in the real world. Our tuition-free charter school is currently enrolling grades TK through 9 and expanding to grades 10, 11, and 12 in the coming years, giving your child the perfect opportunity for continuous play-based social-emotional learning. Enroll now so you can enjoy ILEAD Agua Dulce's beautiful campus and outdoor classroom for hands-on learning. To learn more about ILEAD Agua Dulce and our unique approach to learning, visit ileadaguadulce.org. ILEAD Schools, free to think, inspired to lead.
This holiday music is brought to you by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center, your community health partner. To learn more about our award-winning care, call 1-888-HEALING or visit us on the web at providence.org.
You might not know the difference between a fade, a pompadour, a cropped fringe, or faux mohawk, but the Sport Clips Guy Smart stylists sure do. We know you don't think about haircuts 24/7. That's Sport Clips' job. That's why Sport Clips specializes in haircuts for men and boys. Sport Clips has turned something you have to do into something you want to do. You don't ever need an appointment at Sport Clips, and you'll walk out feeling like an MVP. Guaranteed. Sport Clips at the Santa Clarita location nearest you.
Hi, I'm Tamara Gurney, president of Mission Valley Bank, Santa Clarita Valley's local community business bank. It's been a challenging 18 months, and as we approach the holidays, our bank is pleased to bring you some holiday music in the hopes of uplifting your spirits and spreading some joy during this season. I'd also like to invite you to visit us at our branch located at 26701 McBean Parkway, across from the town center, to meet our amazing team. And on behalf of our entire Mission Valley Bank team, we wish you a very happy and healthy holiday season.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. We have a great guest today, Jane Hanson, with the co-host, Traci. So the people that were listening, okay, hopefully that's everyone, we learned that Jane, that's a good skill, by the way, Jane has a lot of knowledge about body language. And before we left for break, we said we'd like Jane to go over 3 different body language concepts and explain what they mean.
Are you ready?
I'm waiting. and screamer is not
All
one
right.
of them.
So the first thing that is really crucial about body language is eye contact, because eyes are the gateway to the soul. So I want you to think about when you are talking to somebody, if it's, one-on-one, make sure that you have very direct eye contact. I don't want you to stare, but I want you to make it so that they know you're listening to them. And by the way, there are lots of little other cues, like, for example, if you look up and to the left a lot, and some guys at the FBI told me this, it means you're lying. And if your eyes are darting all around the room, it means you really don't know the answer to something, or you're not interested. So think of your eye contact. It's an amazing way of getting people to like you and respect you. And likability is really, really, really crucial, always, but especially in today's world. So then when we talk about our voice and how we're speaking, which is also part of body language, the most underutilized tool we have is something very simple. I just did it. It's called a pause. And it's the length of time it takes to tap your foot. And what do pauses do? Well, they show that you're brave because nobody likes, well, especially in a radio show, dead air, but even in a conversation. So we always want to rush to fill that air. And we'll use crutch words like, so, like, the latest I'm hearing is, so, yeah, no. So we're saying, yeah, no, before we even begin our answer, which sounds really absurd. But a pause, yeah,
You didn't
exactly.
pause, Traci.
A pause makes people sit up and pay attention, and it makes your confidence level go up, and people think that you are far more confident even if you're not. So that's one thing you can do. And the other thing that I like a lot especially if you're making a presentation, this isn't so much for interviews, but it's when you're making a presentation, is to have some movement. I don't like having podiums because podiums put a barrier between you and the audience. So what I like to talk about is some strategic movement. And you make the movement. You don't really walk and talk a lot because then people on one side of the room or the audience can't hear you, or even in a conference room. But you talk a couple of steps, you stop, and then you make a statement. And then when you're done with that statement, you move again. These are the kinds of things that keep an audience absolutely engaged because they don't know what you're doing next. It's kind of like when you were in school and the teacher would be looking around, or they'd make a statement, or maybe they'd move, and you knew you better pay attention because you were going to be asked that question next. That's what happens when you have some strategic movement. It's all about keeping your audience engaged. So there were 3. I got 1 million. You want more?
Well, you definitely kept us engaged. Well, I'll say that. Well, you got 2 minutes left. So, Traci, do you have something that you wanted to ask? And if we have more time, then we'll come back for the third.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you brought up the pause because it's incredibly important for, especially like we were saying, like newbies to these new types of platforms. But it's so hard to create that pause. So what would be a deeper level tip to someone who was a host and creating an interview to basically implement that pause?
Like Traci.
So let's just say you're doing an interview and you're making a really important point. And instead of rushing the words together, stop at the end of a sentence. A pause is only the length of time it takes to tap your foot. So I'm not talking about a long time. It's just quick. But it's enough to make people take notice. So think about, and sometimes if you've got a script that you're using or something that's really embedded in your head, plan it. You can also plan smiles. And by the way, a smile is one of the most important things you can do as long as you're not talking about some awful subject. But when you smile,
I hate to do this, but we have to pause until you're on again. Thank you very much. KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. Thank you very much. Have a great week, guys.